Corporation Counsel Brian Candela. We have Geraldo, Tony, Cara, Nora, Lori. Am I missing anybody? Excellent. And I just want to start by wishing everybody a happy, healthy 2021. May this year be better than the previous year for us all. And I thank you all for all you did in 2020. And in advance, oh, there goes Mickey. Mickey Colazar just joined us. And I thank you all for the diligence over the last, and patience over the last few years as we worked to improve and tweak the code of ethics for the benefit of the city of Norwalk. So it looks like we have finally achieved our goal. I will let, well, actually, before we get to Brian, is there any public participation? There does not appear to be public participation. Let's move to accept the minutes and then we can get to Brian. So do I have a motion to approve the October 22nd minutes from Cara, Geraldo, or Nora, or Tony?
So moved, Cara Murphy. And it looked like Geraldo seconded.
Yep.
No. I think my name was spelled wrong, incorrectly in one spot.
Yes, it was. It's a H-A-R. So Geraldo, can you, so we'll tweak the spelling of his name. Is there any other tweaks?
No.
Geraldo, do you want to second then?
I second, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unless I have to abstain because I wasn't there.
Cara Murphy.
Lori does abstain. Any opposed? Then motion carries. Lori and Mickey abstain.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion carries. Now to the exciting news that I was eager to get to and jump the gun on is I believe Brian has some exciting news for us for where we stand with the update on the code of ethics. Brian. There you go.
But didn't mean to keep you guys waiting. Yeah, so as you know, the last two sections, 32.8 prohibited gifts was approved over the late part of the summer of 2020. And after a lot of work, 32.4 conflicts of interest was approved by the Common Council at its first meeting in January of 2021. So now we have all of the sections of the ordinance have now been approved and changed. 32.8 has been submitted to code. I believe it's already there at the top of the screen. 32.4 was just submitted to code after the ordinance, after Common Council approved it. So that should be hopefully get up on the website soon. But now, as we had discussed, once we had worked on the Citizens Guide to the Code of Ethics on the other sections that had already been approved. And now the final two sections have been approved. And if you take a look at the Citizens Guide that was attached to the agenda, which is on the website, everyone could take a look and see that the sections that are redlined that still have work to be done concern conflicts of interest on page 4, which is section 32.4, which was just approved. And also gifts on page 5, which would be 32.8 prohibited gifts. As you can scroll through the rest of the document, there doesn't appear to be any other red lines except for those two pages on 4 and 5. And that was because they were the last two sections that had not yet been approved. So the board had already gone through making changes to the rest of the Citizens Guide and waited on these two portions until 32.4 and 32.8 had been approved. And now they have been. So I guess the hope now is to finalize these changes, vote on those changes, and then update it. And just so the board is aware, it's very difficult to find the Citizens Guide. You have to Google it, and some people have had difficulty finding it when they've inquired about it. So I believe the best course of action would be for both employees, officers, and just residents of Norwalk, that a link to this Citizens Guide be on the Board of Ethics city page so that people can access it if they need to. But that's basically the update, that all the sections have been approved now by the Common Council.
Excellent. That's very exciting update. We've been long awaiting that.
And just a thank you to everybody for all your hard work. I know not only did you come to these meetings, but many of you came to ordinance committee meetings and answered questions and of the Common Council at least over a couple of years. So I can't speak for everybody, but I'll speak for myself. Thank you. This was a lot of work. Obviously, it took many years to do it, and I think I think you guys did a really good job fixing it. And so congratulations. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. And I will speak also for myself, but I believe on behalf of the board, and the board can feel free to chime in for themselves. But we greatly appreciate your assistance and guidance in this. We couldn't have done this without you and your patience and working with us and going through each line by line and sometimes redoing lines over in 6 different meetings across several different years. So thank you for guiding us and being patient. It was a pleasure to work with you throughout this whole process.
Thank you. To all of you as well. Thank you.
I echo the same sentiment, and it was a learning experience for the little bit of time that I've been on. So thank you, Brian, and thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
And
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Now what are we gonna do?
We're not done yet. Well, wait till we get to that part, but
Yeah,
I'll
now
let
is the
others
big.
chime in.
And I just wanted everyone to know that former Councilman Doug Hempstead was in my office today, and he expressed his appreciation and gratitude for all the work we did to revise the Code of Ethics. He was here for another reason, but he just wanted me to know that. So passing that on to everyone.
And we'd like to thank Doug, because when we started with this process, he was also quite involved, and that's how long we've been working on it. So thank you, Doug, as well.
Yes.
Right.
I would also add, it's been a pleasure working with the team. And we appreciate the work you have contributed. Brian, you stepped in when this was already started and took charge. So thanks for all that you did to help us through and guide us through this process.
Thank you.
Excellent. So to Lori's question, although said in jest, as Brian mentioned, we do get to go through these 2 sections of the Citizen Guide to finish that out. And then the fun thing that we've all been waiting for and working towards is a part of our mission is to educate those in Norwalk about the code and that it exists, and discuss strategies of how we're going to go do that. I think for the purpose of tonight's meeting, we can focus on the Citizen Guide and then use the next month to, you know, shift our attention to now sharing folks about it. So we can, you know, think offline about it and then bring our ideas come February's meeting to how we can get this word out. Most likely post-COVID era, as I don't think we'll be hosting meetings or trainings or the like at this time. However, maybe there are some creative ways that we could do it during this COVID era as well. So, but let's shift attention to page 4 of the Citizen Guide, section 1 or 2-1.
Brian, can you put that up on a screen share for us?
I have no idea how to do that.
Uh,
I don't
bear-
think I'm the host either.
Oh, actually, yeah. Hold on. Can I do it? Yeah, I think I can. Hold on. Bear with me. Uh,
Got it.
can you
There you
guys
go,
see that?
Michael.
Yes.
All right. So now I don't think I could play around with the other stuff on my computer. So I will have this screen up and allow others to read through, compare it to 32-4 that Brian emailed us today. And just to see how we want to tweak and finalize this language. Take a minute, no rush. And if you need it bigger or anything, let me know.
Hey, Michael, I'm trying to line this up like, so are we looking at section 1? Where is it on Brian's? Because conflict of interest.
So it's before gifts. This is just a citizen guide. It's
Oh.
it's related to the code of ethics. It's 32-4, which is conflicts of interest.
Okay, so
This is our translation. This is our layman terms translation for citizens.
Thanks. Okay, appreciate it.
No problem. Let's take 2 more minutes and then I'll open it up.
Employment with the city officers, employees shall not grant special consideration treatment.
One more minute. All right. Does anybody have an opening thought, comment, remark related to this section?
One thing that jumped out at me is that I think we should reference the specific section of the code in there. Do we earlier in this document, so that,
It's referenced per the title, the subject, conflicts of interest, and
I
then
put the section in there of the code so that they know that, because what I don't know, my thought with this is that we don't want to hear that something that we wrote in there negated something in the code, like they misunderstood
So
because,
Laura, you're right. At least if you take a look at page 7 under use of influence and information, we specifically reference section 32.7.
right. We should
And
put the
so there aren't that many sections that are actually need to be specifically referenced in the Citizens Guide. And it would be a very easy fix. In fact, number 5 on page 6, use of public property, also references 32.6. So that specific section. Procurement, I'd have to take a look at. Subsequent employment and future employment, definitely we could simply insert the section that it's referring to. That's an easy fix as well. And the only other two sections would be gifts and conflicts of interest, which we already have. That would be referenced specifically in here.
And is there some kind of blanket statement somewhere in the document, beginning or end of the document, that says, look, you need to go back and refer to this specific code, you know, in other words, this is for the user's convenience, but it doesn't.
Look at this. It says this guide provides general information only, are not intended to be exhaustive. A complete copy of the Code of Ethics and the Citizens Guide are available. So yeah, this is not to supersede or the code itself.
Right, great, yeah. But I do think putting the section in there so they know where to go back.
Nope, noted.
And just so everyone knows, because we were fixing the actual code itself, the Citizens Guide that currently exists, which is not really usable at this point, attaches a copy of the Code of Ethics after the form. I removed it because it would add about 20 pages to this document that we're trying to load onto the city website. But when the final form that you guys will vote on, when the language is done, I will add in the Code of Ethics, the current Code of Ethics. And so that language will be at the end of the Citizens Guide. So when someone opens up this web link, they will see the Citizens Guide, they can see the forms, they can see the flow charts, which are very helpful. Obviously, all the information that's in a Citizens Guide, and at the end, after the forms, would be a complete section of the code in case they were unable to find it on the city website.
Great, yeah, and Kara, your flow chart's amazing. I thought that was great.
Brian?
Need to update that at all, or is that still current?
That's current. Yes, Geraldo?
I have a question. Why wouldn't we just put a link to the Code of Ethics instead of bringing in the whole big thing? Because that could be a challenge.
We
some
could
people with.
Well, and here's the thing, and that's the other reason I wanted to raise this to you. We could do that one of two ways. We could either attach it like we have in the past, or we can put a link. But what I can tell you is that what I'd like to do with IT is, when this is all said and done, I would like on the Board of Ethics city page, I'd like to have a link that will take you directly to the Code of Ethics, Chapter 32 of the ordinances, and then underneath that link, a link to the Citizens Guide to the Code of Ethics, so that if somebody gets to the Board of Ethics page, then they have quick links to find those documents, as opposed to trying to search for them in other places.
Nora?
So whatever you guys decide to do, I can attach it at the back, or we could put a web link, whichever you guys decide that you would like to do. You could do both.
I would believe that putting a link helps a lot, because if you attach it, then somebody that's working on their phone or something may be challenged, or a slower PC may be challenged trying to bring all of that in.
Nora?
And thank you, Brian, for thinking about how we're going to display this. I actually just wanted to follow up on Lori's point. Just when we were rereading that language, it does strike me that maybe from a lawyer's perspective, we should add a sentence saying that in case of any conflict between the guide and the code is controlling, which seems like it should go without saying, but nonetheless, we never want to get in a situation where someone, says, well, I relied on the guide. So I think that's pretty standard sort of disclaimer language we might want to add.
Yeah, we can certainly, let me take a look and see where we might want to add that.
Yeah.
It might be helpful to add it into, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kara.
On the first page that Mike was pointing to earlier, under introduction,
Right here,
the last
yeah.
paragraph, you could just add it there.
Yeah,
This guide provides general information only. It is not to supersede the complete Code of Ethics or something along that lines.
all right, let me,
You can just put the lawyer's disclaimer there.
Well, there's more than half of you are lawyers on this call, so I'm glad you appreciate that.
Mike, you shouldn't feel outnumbered.
Yeah, it's okay. I like that I have friends on this call that are lawyers. I'd much prefer it that way than a different situation. But before we go too far into how it's going to be displayed, et cetera, which I think could be a partial meeting in and of itself once we, and I think it might go through a couple iterations once we see how it is displayed. Let's focus on following through initially on this content. So I like Lori's idea of having 32.4 in the first line referenced, specific to the red line language or the other two paragraphs. Does anybody else have commentary, pro, con, tweak, constructive criticism?
I'm in
support.
agreement with these suggestions that were made.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Geraldo, go ahead.
Support what Laura recommended. I think putting that in there would be of great value to anyone that's using this as a reference.
I
Excellent.
actually had the same suggestion about consistency with referencing the sections as Lori did, so I'm fine with that suggestion.
Excellent. Is there anybody else that has a thought, constructive criticism? Okay. One thing that I wanted to put out there, specific to the red line portion, is I noted the difference between the red portion and what's not outlined. And to me, what struck me is the red line portion seems a lot of legalese, to reference what we were just discussing, as opposed to possibly flow smoother, easier spelled out for citizens, if you will. And so I'm very good with the content that's there, but wanted to pose, did we think there might be a smoother, clearer way to state some of these things? For example, I do like the last sentence where it says a conflict of interest exists whenever an officer, it's more direct as opposed to the beginning where it has a lot of jargon, I felt, in it, and a really long run-on sentence. What do others feel?
The only I think perhaps, and I see what you're saying, where it starts with which is in conflict with or incompatible with the proper discharge of his or her. I mean, that's, I think, where you can say maybe it gets, like you said, a little more, with jargon. If we want a layman's, maybe that's the aspect, because the first part, I don't know how you could get away with it. You got to leave the first part: avoid engaging in any business or transaction or having a personal, immediate family or business interest. That's to the point.
Well, correct. And Tony, to that point, I think if you put a period after a business interest, or after directly or indirectly period, and maybe that's not a complete sentence, which we can read over. To me, the code will have all this spelled out in depth. To me, this is to just hit with bullet points and clear language that says, okay, if you have a conflict, you family, that's a benefit, period. And then the last sentence, what I liked is it, again, it was just clear and about, a benefit disproportionately from other citizens, etc. So I just wanted to pose that. It's a collective decision. It's not mine, and see what others' thoughts were.
Yeah, I agree.
I
We
think
can-
that we can, sorry, Tony.
That's okay.
I think we could take out a few words in that first sentence and pare it down, and it'll be easier to read. So if you give me a second, I'll go to town on it. So.
Yep.
I also agree with your recommendation, Michael. I think we need to simplify that statement, shorten and simplify that statement. I agree. As a guide, I also agree it should be.
But for example, I like the part where it says, where where it might influence his or her independence, and right there, that's enough said there as an example.
Mm-hmm. And just while Cara is working on that, I'm just going to make an offhanded comment that I wish I was on the golf course with Mickey. A little chilly out there right now, but wherever that would be greener and nicer.
No, I'm in Florida.
So there you go.
See?
A lot warmer.
And I assumed you had figured out how to put a background image in yours, Mickey.
Yes, I'm really technologically challenged, but that's about the only thing I could do.
All you needed to do is have somebody do it for you. That's it.
Yeah, well, I did it myself, actually.
Okay.
While Kara's working on that, I'm going to risk overloading us and just putting this second section up that we could start to review this just while Kara's working on the language for the last section. So why don't you take a moment to, this is a gift section, and I am gonna cut out that first, or let's see if I can do this so that, is that too small? If you need it enlarged, I'll enlarge it, but this way it gets the whole section in. Read through that and prepare your notes.
Michael, what are the underlying bullets? But, you know, for example, political contributions or awards and gifts.
Oh, you just randomly hit mute.
No, I was just trying to understand that where you have the bullets in red,
Mm-hmm.
but not anything else. For example, political contributions, you have the bullet that's underlined and as well as awards. What does that mean?
I'm thinking.
It said that it looked like it's just a change in the format.
Oh.
Look to the right where it says
Yep,
format.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I
Formatted
wasn't
font.
Yeah, so Tony, Geraldo's right. If you take a look at, and again, there's going to need to be some changes, but when we were going through this, while we still tried to update what we had. When it pertained to 32.8, it's really just going to be a list of things that's almost going to track identically from what's in the code so that people can see it. It'll be in two different places. But if there's a red bullet point, it means that formatting was probably messed up and one separate bullet point got dragged into another, and I had to separate them out because they were separate thoughts or separate prohibitions. And so basically it was, if it's a red line, if there's red writing, then that means I added in because it wasn't there. But if there's a red bullet point, it means it was probably attached to the sentence before and it needed to be separated out.
Got it.
One more minute to review.
Michael, at an appropriate time, I have a suggested edit of that other section.
Excellent. We'll do that in a moment. Let's see if anybody, to Lori's point, will add in the first sentence or so, reference 32-8, which is the gift section, I believe. And aside from that, do we have any edits, tweaks, ideas related to this, or are we good with how it reads?
I would just comment that this appears to be largely word for word. code itself, and I don't know if maybe it'd be worth trying to simplify it a little, so instead of gifts or social courtesies related to family relationships, could it just say gifts from families and established, from family and established personal friends, and again, because the whole idea is to simplify a little bit and then let people get into the nuances.
Well, so then what do we think about that? The red line paragraph that's added, I felt covered pretty much a good portion of the first bulleted, like it wrapped it all up, gifts or social courtesies given to celebrate major life events, etc. I won't read through it all, but I felt it, hit most of those bullets. So it's possible to use that in place of, if that's, or have, to Nora's point, fewer bullets, not just verbatim.
Well, and I think maybe I'm wrong, but did some of that language come out of this final code section, like the celebrating major life events? I think is no longer in the final code, so that might add more confusion than.
Where's the life events? Where am I not seeing that?
It is, hold on, it's right here. Celebrate.
Oh, you mean the big red paragraph down at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that got removed, but let me double check.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I don't see it in
That I believe that got removed because it was duplicative of C1.
Can I ask a dumb question? I should know the answer to this, but what do we mean by social courtesies?
Oh, that's a dumb question. I don't know. What does that mean?
I mean, like maybe we could simplify, like explain that a little bit more.
Social courtesies.
That might be a good term to break down a little bit for people.
Lori, when I think of social courtesies, I'm thinking as it described, bringing someone a little gift to celebrate one of the major life events or any other event.
Well, a social courtesy that's not listed here based on a major life event might be a housewarming gift, showing up at a dinner party and you bring a bottle of wine as a social courtesy, something of that nature.
Do we want to put parentheses, for example, and explain that a little bit, or is everybody okay with that just the way that it is? Because I'm fine if you're fine, but I think that might be a little bit murky to somebody looking at the citizen's guide, for clarity. But that might just be me.
No, I'm in agreement with Laurie with what she not only indicated, but also suggested. I agree with you.
And I'm in agreement, I think.
If the effort is to make this simple for the layperson, remember, it's a layperson.
Yeah.
The layperson is going to look at this and say, just like what Laurie said, what is that? Now we just lost somebody.
Right. And I think that it was intended to capture things, so like a gift implies a specific, like I gave this to you. I think it was intended to capture things like, goodie bags at a reception, having, again, a bottle that's brought to share with a group of people, like things that are not necessarily gift specific to one person or another, but are nonetheless sort of, in that sort of social milieu, I think was the idea.
And that's fine if that's the thought, but I think given, like she said, parenthetical, comment on, for example, would help at least get them to think, oh, I see, Oh,
totally. No, I think that would be helpful. I mean, again, the guide is supposed to explicate the code, not just rewrite it. So
what if we just took social courtesies out?
Well, that's language in the.
But for the purpose of the citizen guide, I'm not talking about taking it out of the code itself, but for the citizen's guide, what if we just took out social courtesies and it says gifts given to, we're not just similar to the code. It's not going to cover every single nuanced example, But if the main concern, usually people aren't going to be looking here to say, oh, can I bring something to a potluck? You know, it'll be, gee, if I give a
One could
gift.
argue that social courtesies are fall within what a gift is. I mean, it's a
Right.
social courtesy to bring wine to a dinner party for the person hosting, but one could argue that's also a gift.
Correct. Right. So that's why I think if we just take out social courtesies, you know, so gifts given to celebrate major life events such as etc., I think that could solve what we were just discussing. Is that, you know, comfortable with everybody?
Sounds logical to me.
Now, another example of a social courtesy might be my law firm delivering a huge basket of, I don't know, cookies at the end of the year to the mayor's office or corporation counsel's office, wishing them a happy holiday season. That would be another example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wonder if there isn't a way for us to kind of capture the intent of that in a clearer way, because I think it's important, because you just, I keep thinking that since we've been working on this, I keep thinking of the vexatious people out there that would want to make a thing about the fact that your law firm sent a box of cookies over, you know, to the mayor's office for the holidays. And yeah, you're just trying to buy influence with those cookies, and to just expressly state that, I mean, it is in the code, I get it. So maybe that you guys will feel that that covers it. But I also think there's a benefit of just saying, look, a nominal, you know, gift or something.
Well, Lori, but to that point,
okay, you know.
Lori, to that point though, we do have $150, and as generous as Cara's cookie platter may or may not be, that covers a tremendous amount.
Okay.
And also in this line, if you read down here where my mouse is, it says, in the event of a complaint of the violation of this section, the officer or employee shall have the burden of proving that the gift is a bona fide gift or social courtesy customarily made for the occasion. So to me, again, similar to what we were doing with the code, it allows nuance and us to interpret. So if Cara is so generous and gets the $300 cookies, you know, and you know, distributes those, but she's consistent with that, you know, she does that to the police station too and the fire station, and that's just the platter they get, or you know, cookies have just been marked up greatly, then we can understand that that's not intended as a, you know, bribe or something of the sort, that that's actually customary for that occasion.
Right. And for the record, my law firm doesn't do that and has never done that. And as a matter of fact, there are major corporations that prohibit that. So we don't ever do that, ever. I was just
Right.
using my
Let
law
it be,
firm.
since we're being recorded, let it the record show.
Yeah, my partners would never do that. So
but no, so I feel if we're going to take out and the social courtesy here, so it's gifts given to, we should also then take it out here where it says or social courtesy. So it's, the gift is a bona fide gift customarily made for the occasion. Just take out social courtesy in both places.
Not to overthink this, but I actually think you can leave it down below and take it out from up above. I don't know. I can live with whatever you guys want. It doesn't, I'm not that dug in on any of it, but.
Go ahead, Geraldo.
I was going to say, I agree with the general concept of what Laura was presenting of saying, and Nora and others, that, you know, should simplify the language. I think even if you put something as simple as saying gift or items given to celebrate, etc., that, you know, using items instead of the word social courtesy, where it says, you know, somebody will understand item is anything. It could be some small token or something, as long as, you know, since it's relative as to this is a small item, it's just a bottle of wine, but is it $1,000 bottle of wine or is it a, you know, $25 bottle of wine?
Okay, so now
I think
I'm gonna try to go through, and I'm open to critiques. This isn't the final decision. So let's take out social courtesies everywhere it appears. just to be consistent with that. So in this first bullet, gifts related to family relationships, I'm comfortable leaving that. I'm comfortable with the second bullet. I'm reading through the third bullet just to see.
Sorry, hang on. I don't want to harp on this, but I just want to make sure that I have clarity on
Go ahead.
this. So I thought you were deleting the first two bullets because they're duplicative of the last
Well,
one.
it's possible. Good point. I stand corrected.
Okay, that's what. Yeah, no, I just want to make sure because we seem to have it in two
Yep.
places.
Yep. Note that, Brian, that we're gonna delete these two because it's covered in down here. Tenants at events of charitable.
I'm lost where you guys are.
So Brian, we're right now, if you look at my screen or whatever shared, we're gonna delete these first two bullets because it's covered in the red.
First two
So-
bullets.
So gifts.
Oh, gifts and
gifts or social-
established.
Yep. Gifts or social courtesies will be deleted, and established personal friendships will be deleted. I'm just reading the third bullet. Does anybody have an issue if we leave this third bullet?
No.
Okay, so then we'll leave that. Political contributions received within applicable law, rules, and regulations.
Sorry, Michael. I was still thinking when you said that, and I kind of was harping on that latter part of the third bullet, the latter
Mhm.
part, not intending to influence judgment or behavior. And I just start, again, to Harold's earlier point, earlier point. If we want to focus on simplifying it in layman's term, I just thought not intended to influence, but when we go on to judgment or behavior, I don't know, it could get murky there. I don't know what it means, but again, for layman's term, this sounds very legalistic.
We did hear you, Tony. I'm processing. To Tony's point, and now to really get into minutia potentially, what if we took out not intended to influence judgment or behavior and just put a period? So attendance at events of charitable, public, governmental, informational, or business nature where refreshments may be served and small souvenirs of the event may be distributed, period. And the reason I say that is in the code, it'll go into the depth and nuance and detail of if it's, given to everyone. It's actually similar to down here where it says, I think it's down here. I thought I saw it where if everybody at the party receives the same thing, then that's acceptable. It's not when somebody receives this, 5 people that happen to be government officials receive it, but other people don't. So I feel that'll be expressed, the nuance and detail in the code itself. And here, if we just say, and leave a period after distributed, it serves the purpose. Are there issues with that?
I like that thought.
Mickey, Geraldo, Cara, Nora.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I've got a low battery, so I'm trying to find a cord to plug in my cell phone.
Okay.
Uh-oh, this is like the Hunger Games for Mickey. See if he makes it to the end.
I agree. I'm good with that.
Okay, so you got that, Brian? We'll just put a period after distributed Perfect. All right. And then on to the next is, are we good with leaving? I think we are good with leaving political contributions received within applicable laws, rules, and regulations.
That's fine.
Good. So then now, as we get into this next bullet, are we trying to have all these bullets in the citizens guide, using loans obtained according to prevailing commercial practices and rates? I'm not sure that anybody's looking at the citizens guide to see if money is loaned from a bank to a government official or such. And again, that could be referenced in the code itself. But if we want to, it's clear English. I just don't know that it needs to be here.
I don't know.
That
I think it
section,
kinda
that
does.
section's already in the code. It's section 4, C4.
Yeah, and I think that, I think I don't know, I think that's definitely good to leave. My own thought is that it's good to leave in, so if I'm getting money, because I did a favor for the bank, I approved their signage, and now they're going to give me a below rate loan. Definitely that's a conflict of interest. But if my father's going to loan me money for an investment property I'm building, then I think that's a little different. So, if it's, if I'm getting free money from a family member or a friend that has nothing to do with my job, that ought to be exempt from this. But this needs to be clear that I can't use my office or my position to obtain, financing at a better rate than any of the rest of us would
Well,
if we walked into the bank.
Lori, to that point, specific to the family reference and such, that is referenced elsewhere where it discusses as long as it's not a benefit. So if you're on planning and zoning and your father is a developer and wants to gift you something and suddenly you approve his development, that would obviously be a violation. And in that sense, you should actually recuse yourself. But that is referenced elsewhere in the code about, if your father at your wedding or your childhood best friend gifts you a brand new car, as long as there's not a tie-in to a benefit that other citizens don't have, that's okay. So if there's something you think we should put in here to reference that, that is referenced elsewhere. And I can look to find that if you'd like. Go ahead.
It's also, if I may, redundant because it's already included in the 11th bullet below where it says rebates, discounts obtained on the price of anything sold in the normal course of personal business. You could say, I don't know if you want to add personal or, even a commercial transaction, but the point is that I think it's included in there. It's redundant. It's a discount. It's a rebate. It's, you're getting a better deal.
Yeah, I don't know, Tony. That for me is a little bit broad, there, and I wouldn't read that and immediately think of a loan, because here's the thing, loans are subjective, aren't they? Because, I could go in and my credit is stellar, so I get a below market rate, but maybe you're going to shave off another half point because I'm on zoning and I just approved your project, and, so it's somewhat subjective because other people might get something that favorable, but not likely. You know what I mean? Like there's a clear sense of because of my position or what I've done for you or I'm going to do for you, I'm
Or what
getting
I want you to do.
rate.
Yeah.
And I think that the point needs to be made there. Maybe, or we broaden the other bullet that you referenced to include it, to include, lending rates and stuff like that as well. But
Well, what do you? Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. What do you feel is missing? So it says loans obtained according to prevailing commercial practices and rates. So in a prevailing commercial practice, is if you have better credit, you get better rates than, somebody has an 800 credit score and somebody has a 600 credit score. In prevailing practice, they get different terms. What is it that you are looking to put in there to make it clearer, or that we're missing?
Well, if I got a private loan, you decided to personally loan me the money.
Mhm.
And it really has nothing to do with, because so you gave me a more favorable rate. Like, oh, prevailing rates are 5% and you gave me 3%. We're friends, whatever.
That's only an
Somebody should
issue
come
if
back-
then you approve something to my benefit. If you don't approve anything, so Lori, let's just use you and I. If I gave you that 3% loan, and then nothing, that's between us. I'm not presiding over anything related to your business or to your benefit. No harm, no foul. But if I was sitting on planning and zoning and you were asking for an approval at the same time, or just
of course.
before, just after, then that's where it becomes an issue. So to your point, it's only an issue if we're involved in city business otherwise.
Then I
But
think
if,
And the reason why, it's not an issue, why it says that, why it specifically says that that this is not included is because
That's exactly
if
what I
you're,
was
if you're
saying.
given a prevailing commercial practice and rate, if your loan is based on prevailing commercial practices, then they're not doing something to try and, they're not trying to do something in order to try and gain something from you. If they
Yeah,
were trying to
but
do that, they'd have to do better than the.
But in this example, it's substantially below prevailing rate. So so what we're saying here is, okay, if it's prevailing rate, no problem. But if it's substantially below, I need to disclose that because it could be perceived as a conflict.
Yeah,
Well,
but the provision up above where it says not included are, I think that's the context of what we're reading.
Right. It says not included are loans obtained according to prevailing commercial practices and rates. So what I'm saying, great. So if the current going rate is 5% or somewhere between 4 and 5, depending on your credit, and I get 4, great. But if I go into the bank and I get 2.5%, that's substantially below the prevailing rate. So what this is telling me is that I need to come back and get some approval because I got something that was substantially better than you would have gotten with the same credit if you walked in. And I need to explain that I didn't get it because of my position in the city. I got it because Michael and I are personal friends, or,
let
whatever.
me use a different example that may be applicable. We have teachers that work in the city of Norwalk who may have, if there's a 30-year teacher, they may have a 25-year-old child who entered the police force, and they may gift them a house or give them money for a down payment on a house that exceeds this $150. To me, the point that I was trying to make where this comes in is a parent, a childhood friend, anybody can gift anybody privately money or loan money at any rate they want. It only becomes an issue when there is it doesn't have to be real, appeared quid pro quo, where that person benefiting from the loan does something within their title of the city of Norwalk. So for example, if that parent is a teacher and that child is a police officer, and they help them with the $100,000 deposit on their first home, and then said person gets police benefits from that, that's an issue. If there becomes no benefit aside from the loan itself, there isn't an issue. This I think the crux of, and maybe we need to put that in the first paragraph. I do believe it reads elsewhere, it doesn't read on this page, but maybe in the first paragraph there's a way to say it that says uh you know gifts. There has to, I know there's a place that says it.
Yeah, if we could say it, even if we modify that bullet to just say, or, loans obtained.
Oh,
for-
here. Gifts made with the monetary value in excess of $500 must be disclosed in writing within 90 days in the event of so here so it says as defined in the Code of Ethics, Chapter 32, or close personal friend. So I think actually, as I'm reading
Loans,
this,
though.
huh?
It says, see, I would read gift to mean I gave you $1,000. So I'm $500 over the limit and I have to disclose that. So that doesn't say loan. So if I
The
loan.
gifts / loans. So gifts, or it could be contributions, gifts, loan, or is there a third word that we can use that covers everything? But gifts hyphen loans made with a monetary value in excess of $500 must be disclosed in writing, and it only becomes an issue if there's a complaint, and then you have the burden of proving that that gift is bona fide, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
but
can do
doesn't
that
that,
there.
doesn't that then say that anytime a city employee, let's see, hold on one second. Gifts made with a monetary value in excess of 500 must be disclosed in writing. So basically, every time an employee or an officer gets a loan, they have to disclose it to the Board of Ethics.
No, if they get a loan that's either below, like they get something that's substantially better than the prevailing rate. They got some big whopping deal from the bank because, whatever, they like you, Brian, because, I know Brian, he's a great guy. But everybody else is getting, a loan at 5% and you walk in and you get 3%, and you're getting something substantially better. That's an item that's reportable. But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that,
fair enough.
if we're saying that, okay, you can have a private loan, between family members or close friends that has no tie to your work in the city, fine. But do we ask them to disclose that? So in other words, I would, as an employee, I'd be much happier disclosing it because I'd want you to know about it so that nobody can come back and accuse me of doing something wrong.
Right. So I mean, so we have here as one of the bullet points that
Brian, while you're looking,
not included are, and it says loans according to prevailing commercial practices and rates. So we're saying that you don't have to worry about that. But if you get something, as Lori's saying, where the interest rates are 6% and you're getting it for 3%, that's not a prevailing rate. And so, I mean, I don't think it hurts to put in there gifts / loans. I don't think it hurts to put gifts / loans in there. But
can we tweak that sentence? So it's gifts, loans made with a monetary value in excess of $500 that do not follow where's that, commercial customary rates, commercial
So I
practice.
think we might have to do that. Unfortunately, I think we might have to make two separate sentences. Talking about gifts in excess of $500, and then we'd have to say something about loans that aren't a prevailing commercial rate. And again, that gets into a very gray area about, well, what if you're getting it at 4% instead of 4.5%? Is that really not a prevailing rate? I don't know what the definition is of where the deviation occurs from what's a prevailing rate and what isn't a prevailing rate.
Go ahead, Nora.
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to keep harping on this, but I am genuinely confused. Didn't the language about it must be disclosed come out of the final code section? Like, I thought that was something we had proposed and that then the ordinance committee took out.
There is no language in 32.8 that I can see that says anything about that somebody must disclose a gift in excess of $500.
So aren't we, if that's true, within the guide, all we're doing is, summarizing and simplifying what's in the Code of Ethics.
We're trying, yeah, exactly. We're
we
trying
shouldn't be
to
adding anything or
this should be a
interpreting.
Cliff Notes. This should be a Cliff Notes version of some of the, maybe not even all of them, but some of the prohibited gifts that need to be, or whatever, prohibited gifts or things that are okay.
So can you guys look at my screen? I think I have 32.8 up. Is that what you guys see?
Yep.
All right. So in the actual code, the section 1 kind of covers what we're discussing. So we just have to figure out in laypersons and maybe just flat out reference 32.8C1 is what, because this says, notwithstanding this subsection does not prohibit the following. And this says gifts or social courtesies related to a family relationship or established personal friendship between an officer or employee, which are not designed to influence the judgment or action of officer or employee within the scope of his or her official responsibility and or authority. And to me, this paragraph, I believe, and I'm open to if Lori, okay, Lori, go ahead. You're shaking your head.
Well, if you thought that that covers the number 4 for loans, I would say no. I would either replicate what we have in 1, carry some of that language down into number 4. But once you're like the minute that I don't have a loan at the prevailing commercial rate,
So you're hung up on a loan is different than a gift.
yes, a loan.
Okay.
I agree with you in the strictest sense. A loan is a gift, but but if I'm taking.
Well, so so let's say to your end, we're not changing the code now, just so you know, 32.8's approved.
No.
But so if going to the, if we put gifts or loans, say using section 1 for a second, if this said loans, does that cover what you're discussing, Lori?
Look at number 4, Michael. And
Hold on,
everyone.
I see what number, I know what she's talking about here, but
Yeah.
my point is,
Yeah, maybe if we just change it to gifts, comma, loans or social courtesies related to family relationship. But because I was thinking about just taking 4 out altogether, but the code does say right there that loans have to be a prevailing rate, or you got a conflict, or you've got something you've got to disclose, a reportable item. So
that's right.
well, no, but to that, what you just said is, if you're getting a loan that's not at a prevailing commercial rate, you have to disclose that.
That's right.
And so that covers your private thing. And again, that's, I'm borrowing 100,000 for 1% from John Doe because we grew up together and he's giving me a business loan. But to this section right here, it's not designed to influence the judgment or action of the officer.
Can we copy that and put it down in there?
We can't change 32.8, but we could put it in the citizen's guide.
I didn't mean put it here. I meant put it in the citizen's guide. But yeah, so it explains it. But really, when we go to the employee training piece, they really need to be trained on this because honestly, they're out of compliance if they get a loan from their dad and it's great rates and whatever. They need to understand that that's at least a reportable event, that's something that the city needs to know about. And
what's the language I have? We deleted that bullet point in there, so I have to create a new one. So what is the language that you want for this bullet point?
The top part that Michael just read,
so here, you're talking about
not designed to influence that piece of it. Just stick that into 4, to the other part in the citizen's guide, and that ought to do it.
Can you see that?
Where I have like all these bullet points here, so I don't know where.
Can you look at my screen?
Hold on, because I'm trying to do it on a Word document.
No, I understand. Yeah, sorry.
And Brian, can I ask a favor? Is it a real hassle to send out the old-fashioned packet in the mail with the hard copies? Is it hard for you to do it, or do you have no support in the office now? I mean, I'm not sure how much you guys are in the office.
We have paralegals that are in some of the time. I can try to ask them to mail it out to those who want it. If you want a physical version, I can have them print it out and mail it to you. But I don't know how long the mail is going to take to get there. We've had some issues with the mail.
I know, old days, they used to drop the packets off at the house, but long days gone by.
Yeah. All right. So Michael, I can see the language that you want, which is not designed, but where do you want that?
Yep. So now I'm going to just go.
Can I jump in for a moment since we're talking about the language?
Go ahead, Tony. Yep.
Because we just finished talking about simplifying it for the layman. And I just feel that we might be getting away from that if we're going to start copying.
Well, so if you see it differently, tell me. Feel free. To me, what's highlighted right here um, is relatively layman as far as just clarifying that as long as it doesn't influence your position or something within your as an officer or employee within the scope of your work, this just clarifies where it's acceptable. Again, a parent can give a son who they both work in the police force, the school system, the fire department, town, city hall.
Right, but remember, we just finished in the other section, we just finished, eliminating a whole line, and we have to see it in the context. When you add this to
Well,
the
here, so I'm gonna go back to
to
the
the
where,
next section, when you do, you really want to see how that does that read?
right. So we're gonna go back here and
Do you want it at the end of the loans thing? Is that where you want it?
I have a comment on that.
go ahead.
So when I'm looking at that language, the part you had highlighted in the code itself, when
Mhm.
you're saying which are not designed to blah, 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 on that section, if we have to be careful with that, because a crook that's doing something is never going to admit, oh, this is designed to influence you. I'm giving you this loan. Of course, they're not telling you it's designed. That's the reason they're doing it. So you have to be careful with that also. It's, sometimes something, if it's visible, if you got this and, and the person is then making a decision on some transaction with that company in the future, you have to assume that, at least there's appearance of that was done for, to have some influence on your decision.
I have a tentative thought. I am open to others' thoughts as this is taking a good while and I don't want to
Yeah.
shortchange this. My thought in the moment is let's take a break from this, see what Kara has in the above section, and then at the very least, if that's straightforward, we can approve this section
language.
2.1.
Yeah.
We can improve that language and then continue to work on below. And if we don't finish below, at least we'll have finished this. Is everybody okay to just jump back up here?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right,
Okay.
Kara,
Yeah.
do you want to read to us the language you put together for this section?
Sure. I'm jumping between two computers, so if you can't hear me.
Nope, we could hear you well.
Okay.
And one thing you might want to do after you read it to us is, I don't know if it's easy to shoot an email to Brian with it, just because he's trying to take it on a Word doc, so this way he can have it in front of him as well.
Great minds think alike. I already have the email written.
Nicely
Thank you.
done.
Okay. Officers and employees should avoid any direct or indirect business, transaction, or interest in conflict with or incompatible with the proper discharge of official duties, or creating a divided loyalty impairing independence of judgment and action in his or her duties.
Read it one more time, please.
Officers and employees. I basically took out a lot of words and tried to.
Yeah, no, I see that. Go ahead.
Officers and employees should avoid any direct or indirect business, transaction, or interest in conflict with, or incompatible with the proper discharge of official duties, or creating a divided loyalty impairing independence of judgment and action in his or her duties.
Now, I'm just thinking out loud, and I don't know how this will read together, is if we even shortened it a little more and said, avoid engaging in any business or transaction that directly or indirectly conflicts with your official duties. That might be too simplified. My concern, Carr, with what you read, and I'm mostly okay with it, is when you get into conflict with or incompatible and proper discharge. Discharge is not the worst word in the world, but is more of a legalese word from a layman perspective. And so, again, to me, and I actually think you did cut out a lot of the fat, if you will, and it works. I was just even thinking, is it possible to simplify it further, or is, if we do that, does it impact the meaning?
Okay, so what do you want cut out? And let me
Well,
read
so,
it out loud.
all right, so I'm reading out loud, and we can work on the grammar part of it after. Is officers and employees of the city of Norwalk should avoid engaging in any business or transactions that's directly or indirectly in conflict with his or her official duties,
Period.
period.
Okay. Should avoid in engaging in,
And yep, avoid engaging in any business or transaction, directly or indirectly, which is in conflict with his or her official duties, period.
okay, hold on.
And then the next sentence
Hold
would
on.
read, oh,
Hold
sorry.
on. Okay. All right.
So I'll
Sentence.
read it back one more time, and then I'll point out why I think that might work, and again, open to others' thoughts. Officers and employees of the city of Norwalk should avoid engaging in any business or transaction, directly or indirectly, which is in conflict with his or her official duties, period. And then to me, it goes to a conflict of interest exists whenever an officer or employee will more likely than not benefit disproportionately from other citizens of the city, directly or indirectly from a decision over which they have influence, period.
So it's the same. The second sentence. is
The
same.
second sentence is the same to me, that because somebody's going to say, well, what's a conflict of interest? Boom. We outlined it clearly, concisely. And that ties into, we don't need to have all the additional language around how you benefit comparatively.
So I have
Go
a
ahead.
question.
Go ahead, Geraldo.
Where you have the beginning where it says which is in conflict, should we put which may appear to be in conflict, or either put which is in conflict or may appear? Because somebody could argue it's not in conflict, but it may appear to be, may look like it's in conflict to everybody in the world, yet they could rationalize why it's not in conflict.
So what Geraldo's talking about is the optics of the,
Yes.
right.
And many times, really, I believe that many occasions when there's a conflict or appearance of a conflict of interest, it's really an appearance, and the optics is going to kill you. Wow.
Yeah, but that's why people have a duty to disclose it and get it
Yeah.
cleared, so that's the whole, that's their.
Well, that's why I'm saying,
they're
by saying,
responsible to
even
come
if it's
forward.
maybe,
Sorry, Geraldo?
no, that's why I'm saying, even if it may be in conflict, you should be disclosing it.
Right, and
Agree.
I think that's down, I think it's the last sentence of this section. It says, if an individual is uncertain if he or she has a conflict, he or she should ask for an advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics.
I would even strengthen that. If it says should, it should say must, because they can't just go, well, I didn't think I was in a situation where I had well, I wasn't sure, so I didn't. And I think they, like when we go through the training, I think they have to understand that if it's questionable at all, they have to come forward and get an opinion, and not just feign ignorance.
And just in addition to looking at this globally, if you look up at the paragraph above number 1, it says, as you read through this guide, be aware that the Code of Ethics was enacted to prevent individuals from using their public position or authority for personal gain or benefit. So even that line right there, just, ties into the personal gain or benefit that's potentially gained. So again, going back to the language here in this red section, and we can go over it again, is if we add in, and if we're up for debate, I'm comfortable if Lori wants to put should ask or must ask. Are there, actually, let me ask it this way, Geraldo, because of this last sentence that says about asking for an advisory opinion, does that cover your concern in the above red paragraph?
Not really.
Okay,
I
go
think
ahead.
I believe that by saying it may appear to be in conflict takes a stronger position, because somebody, like leaving it and saying it's in conflict and then just saying, okay, I'm going to go ask a question here. I believe that by saying it may appear to be in conflict provides a stronger or a wider range of areas where you need to ensure that that the activity is not causing some conflict of interest.
But I understand, Geraldo, your concern, but at the end of the day, we can't discipline somebody for bad optics.
No, but we're discouraging them from being involved in activity with bad optics, though.
Okay, but I mean, the citizen guide is more meant for
Guidance, right?
people who are bringing complaints. And I do recognize that employees are going to grab this citizen guide as their cheat sheet. But I also think that in training materials for the employees, we can focus on optics. I mean, we could put it in. I don't.
To both Lori and Geraldo's point, I think what Cara was just alluding to is part of what our job will be and this board's responsibility will be is educating those in the city about this and how we go about that. And Geraldo, and this is just thinking out loud and getting 3 steps ahead, is perhaps there's a YouTube video or a question and answer section where maybe we role play amongst each other, and this section comes up and we discuss the optics, related to a conflict, etc. Or get into that type of nuance. And that's really getting ahead of ourselves, so I'll be quiet now.
I do like your shortened paragraph, and I would just add that, instead of should, must ask for an advisory opinion. If you're unsure, if you have a conflict, you must ask for an advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics.
Geraldo, let me again, thinking out loud, related to the optics portion of it. So if in that sentence it says which is in conflict, and we left it at that, and then on that last sentence where we said if an individual is uncertain if he or she has a conflict or an appearance of a conflict, he or she must ask for an advisory opinion. I'm trying to think if that makes sense in fitting it in there.
Because then they can't get away with saying, well, it looked bad, but I didn't know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, Geraldo? Like then they've got us, it's like, well, you were required to ask if you weren't sure. You can't get away with saying, well, I didn't think I was having a problem.
Yeah, and again, this is really, first of all, yes, Michael, I think that would cover it. But in reality, this is really a guideline, right? The
code is
citizen's
the
guide is a
thing.
guide, and really the essence of what you really have to do is what's in the code.
Correct.
Because this is just a guide sort of instructing you. But the fact is, even if they said this and it doesn't say it that way in the code, it doesn't matter.
So I have a question to Laurie's point, because maybe it shook a little and I kind of missed my place here. Hold on. Where she is indicating where they must, isn't that really implied where it says that the individual has encountered a conflict, he or she is to disclose? Isn't that the sentiment there?
Well, yeah, but then it goes a little further, because then it says if you're not sure, so yes, if you have encountered a conflict, you must disclose. But then this goes even tighter to say, you look, even if you weren't sure, like you can't get away with saying later on, oh, I didn't think I had a conflict. This is saying if there was even a possibility, you need to go as an employee and get, an okay before you do this.
And I think the argument for is to and must is that it's for the employee or officer's benefit, because when they get the advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics, it's a shield. If the advisory opinion says you don't have an issue, don't worry about it, and then somebody files an ethics complaint, they have that sheet of paper, which is almost like a pardon. You guys told me it was fine.
Right.
So it's actually to their benefit to ask the question. It's a way of protecting themselves. And when you get the inevitable eye rolls that they have to go through this process, it's better to go through the process, ask the question, and let somebody else do the work for you than it is to have to do a lot of work defending yourself potentially at an ethics complaint later on. So the minimal amount of work that you would have to do asking the question while somebody else is doing the work is far easier than having to defend yourself or retaining an attorney later on. So there's also that as well. That, we're trying, that this is trying to help you, and the advisory opinion it provides you with a shield. It basically is almost like a get out of jail free card, because if somebody says you shouldn't do it, then don't do it. But if someone says what you're doing is fine, and then somebody files a complaint, you can come back with that sheet of paper and say, you guys told me. So you're protected.
Yep, totally.
So it's to their benefit. I mean, that's because inevitably people are going to be annoyed by this. But I think the way that we have to explain it to them is that it's for your own best interest. It's in your own best interest to ask, to make the ask. It's a lot easier than having to do something later on.
And I think we can emphasize in the training that, look, if it could look bad, then you need to get an okay for it. To your point, Gerald, about the optics, that we emphasize that there.
Yeah. And that's what I was emphasizing. I was thinking, this is really, again, this is the guide, not the code, which has the specifics of what needs to be done. And I just figured with the guide, providing people with the direction of, that if it appears to be a conflict, then you should take measures to ensure that it's not. And even if
right, because the appearance of a conflict isn't a conflict, and necessarily might not get you in trouble, but you're increasing the likelihood that someone is going to respond to that if they also believe it to appear to look like a conflict. So you can only get in trouble for a conflict, but if something looks fishy to you, if there's somebody who doesn't like you, or they have a beef with your department or something like that, and they find out about it, they might roll the dice and see what happens. So there's also that as well.
Right, and I believe at that point you're telling someone, if the person believes that there's an appearance of a conflict, then take measures to to clarify that. But I don't want to, we spend a lot of time. You can decide how you want to go.
Okay, so I think
we're pretty close to at least nailing down this 32.4 section, the number one conflicts.
right. So just to revise or be on the same page, Car, my thought is, Car, if you read what we have for this red paragraph with the which is in conflict, and then related to that, we will tweak this last sentence, and it'll read something along the lines of if an individual is uncertain if he or she has a conflict or appears to have a conflict, he or she must ask for an advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics. And so, Car, if you read this red part, keep in mind that this last sentence will be changed to what I just said, and let's see if we're comfortable with that so we can vote and approve it.
Michael, I had something else that Lori brought up. I think Lori did on the second to last sentence. If the individual has encountered a conflict, he or she is to disclose. I think is to seems like arcane or something to me. Why don't you just say must?
Must.
It'll be the same as the other next sentence. He or she must disclose this rather than is to disclose. I don't, is to sounds weird.
All right, so this is what I have, at least for the final two sentences or final three, whatever it is, before the red. If the individual has encountered a conflict, he or she must disclose this in writing to the Norwalk City Clerk, and if necessary, to recuse himself or herself from taking action. If an individual is uncertain if he or she has a conflict or appears to have a conflict, he or she must ask for an advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so with that in mind, Car, can you please read the red section that we had and see if we're comfortable with moving forward with that?
Officers and employees of the city of Norwalk should avoid engaging in any business or transaction, directly or indirectly, which is in conflict with his or her official duties. A conflict of interest exists whenever an officer and employee will more likely than not benefit disproportionately from other citizens of the city, directly or indirectly, from a decision over which they have influence.
Kara, I think I can save you the email. Let me just read it back to you one more time to make sure I have it. Officers and employees of the city of Norwalk should avoid engaging in any business or transaction, directly or indirectly, hold on, which is in conflict with his or her official duties. A conflict of interest exists whenever an officer or employee will more likely than not benefit disproportionately from other citizens of the city, directly or indirectly, from a decision over which they have influence.
That's it.
All right,
Okay.
you can save yourself the email. I got it. Thank you.
All right, so can we get a motion to approve this page 4, number 2-1, revision of that paragraph language that we just read? Can we have a motion to do that?
Yeah, I'll move to approve it.
Michael, before you guys do
Nope.
that, just note that on next to subsection 1, it now reads conflicts of interest, influence or interference with duties, and then semicolon exceptions, which mirrors 32.4.
Mhm.
And then before officers and employees, I put pursuant to section 32.4 of the Code of Ethics, comma, officers, employees, and then everything else is the same.
Excellent. So go
Good.
ahead, Lori.
I move to approve as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I second.
All right, we'll give that to Geraldo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstain? Excellent. Mission accomplished. Motion carries. So my thought is it's 8:30. We can go back to this section next time, think on it, figure out how we might want to tweak it and format it to our liking. Keep in mind when we're doing it that this is not changing the language that's in the code itself. This is just what is supposed to be easier for citizens to read and go through as bullet points. It is not changing what's actually we follow and track. So are we comfortable leaving this for next meeting and not getting further into that tonight?
I sure am.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead,
just real quick, because we were successful in getting number 1 done,
Mhm.
and because Lori has indicated that she has an interest in getting a physical copy, I'm going to be in the office at some point over the weekend. And what I can do is I'm going to make these changes. And because this has been approved as the number 1 conflicts, I will change this from red line version to black to match all the other stuff that is finalized.
Mhm.
And anybody who wants a physical copy for the next meeting of this with these changes and everything else that we've done so far, minus 32.8, which we still have to work on, I will make physical copies. I will print them out, and then I will ask one of the paralegals early next week to mail it out to you guys so that you should probably hopefully have it before our February meeting. So that would be the goal. So just
Thank you,
send me an
Brian.
email and let me know if you want a physical copy.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
So anybody else besides Lori who wants a physical copy, or you know what, everyone who wants a physical copy, shoot me an email with your updated address, and then I will leave the physical document that I print out along with your address on the paralegal's desk so that she can mail it out.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Is there anything else we wish to go over?
Want a motion to adjourn?
I will take one.
Very,
Go ahead, Lori.
very good, Kyle.
All right, I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Nora, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Greatly appreciate it. Be safe out there. Look forward to seeing you guys next month. Motion to adjourn granted. Or all in favor? Sorry, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Get better, Geraldo.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy New
Many thank you.
Year,
Good
Happy
work,
New Year, everybody. Geraldo, feel better.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.